today's part, the first thing we're going to talk about is what are congruent triangles. So we've spent a lot of time talking about congruent angles. Like, remember we said vertical angles are congruent, right? Alternate interior angles are congruent, things like that. But today, for the next, I don't know, quite a few weeks, we're going to focus on congruent triangles, okay? So congruent, remember, means they have the same size and the same shape. But if you have triangles that are congruent, that means that all pairs of corresponding parts are congruent. What do I mean by parts? Sides and angles, right? Okay, so if it says to mark the corresponding parts, okay, what's an angle from the top triangle? Well, I mean, how would I name an angle from the top triangle? Let's start there. A, okay, so if I say angle A, what does it look like it goes within the second triangle? So these are called arc marks. So I'm going to put arc marks to show that angles are congruent. Because again, I'm following the directions it says to mark the corresponding parts. Okay, what's another pair of angles that you think go together? Okay, so angle C, I'm going to put 2 arc marks there to show that it's different. What is C going to go with in the other part? F. So I'm going to put 2 arc marks at F. Okay, what's the third pair of angles that I'm missing here? So I'm going to put maybe like 3 arc marks on B and 3 on E. Okay, so that's marking, in this case, the angles. Okay, now besides angles, what else do I have in a triangle? I have sides, right? So what's one side in the top triangle? Okay, I heard AC. What does segment AC go with in the other triangle? DF. So what I did now, these are called tick marks. Tick marks show that segments are congruent. Okay, what's another pair of sides that are congruent? So segment AB, I'm going to do 2 tick marks for something different. What is that congruent to? ED. So I'm going to put 2 tick marks because, again, 2 and 2, they match up. And then the one we're missing is what? Segment BC. That goes with segment FE or EF. So if your directions were to say mark the corresponding parts, that's just what I did. I marked the 3 pairs of angles that are congruent, and I also marked the 3 pairs of sides. Okay, everybody's still with me here. Have you done this before, marking congruent parts? Not really? Okay. So the other question on this page says to name the congruent triangles. Now, order matters. Order is important because order tells you what gets matched up. So, for example, if I want to do one situation here, I'm going to put the triangle symbol, and let's say let's call the top triangle, I don't know, give me an order for the top one. What? Okay, so if we do ABC, so if I say triangle ABC is congruent, or that's our congruent symbol, to triangle. Okay, so what should the order of the other one be if the top one was ABC? Okay, I heard somebody say DEF. Now, we got to make sure that that's true. You see how A and D are both listed first. Do they have the same markings? Okay, so we're good so far. B and E are both listed second. Do B and E have the same markings? Yep. And then C and F are both listed third. Do they have the same markings? Yep, so that would be acceptable. What if I changed it around? Let's do another option. How could I call, what else could I call the first triangle besides ABC? Okay, I heard CAB. Let's just do that one. So if I do CAB, what should the order of the other one be? FDE. So again, you can have it in a different order as long as they match up. So again, C goes with F. They both have 2 arc marks. A goes with D. They both have 1 arc mark. B goes with E. They both have 3. As long as they match up correctly, that's acceptable. I could keep going if I wanted to. But again, order is important. Order tells you what gets matched up. So again, if I put A first, D better go first, because those are the matching parts. So again, when you have congruent triangles, all of their corresponding parts are congruent. You're going to have 3 pairs of angles and then 3 pairs of sides every time. Now, in the next lesson we're going to cover on Wednesday, whenever we meet again, we're going to talk about shortcuts to doing this. But right now, you've got all 6 pairs of parts congruent. Okay, questions on this side? Okay, let's go over to the other page then.
How do we know how to do corresponding?
Because order... Hold on to that thought. Okay, so on this page, it says to write 3 angle congruent statements and 3 side congruent statements without using a picture. Okay, so what's going to happen is they're going to give us this statement here. You see where it says triangle ACT is congruent to triangle GRE? Okay, this is telling us the order. So that's how we know what corresponding parts go together. Does that answer your question, kind of, Colton? Okay, so what's one angle out of that top, the first triangle without even looking at a picture?
CTA.
Okay, let's just name it with one letter. Let's make it easy. Angle A. So what is angle A congruent to and the other triangle? G. Because A and G are both listed first, that means they go together. Okay, so I said we have 3 pairs of angles, right, and 3 pairs of sides. So what's another pair of angles that work? Angle C and R, because C and R are both listed second. Okay, and then we need what's the third pair of angles? Angle T is congruent to angle E. Okay, now on to sides. A side is a segment. How do I name a segment? With how many letters? 2, right? Okay, so what's one side of triangle ACT? So if I say segment AC, that's going to be congruent to what side? GR. You see how A and C are both listed first and second, and G and R are both listed first and second. Okay, what's another side? So segment CT is going to be congruent to, what's the other one? RE. Because CT is listed second and third, RE is listed second and third. And the last side we're missing is what? So segment AT is going to be congruent to GE. Okay. Does this make more sense now, everybody? Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to make our own at the bottom. So I gave everybody a piece of bright colored note card, right? So you're going to take your scissors and you're going to somehow cut a triangle. You can make it big, you can make it small.
Fold it into a triangle?
You can fold it into a triangle, but they actually cut it out then. Like, does that make sense? No, trim it a little bit. So you only want 3 sides. I think that looks like it has... Nope. So you're going to cut a triangle. I don't care how big or small you make it. Okay. So I'm going to give you some directions. I'm going to have it on the screen here so you can see what I'm doing. So whatever size triangle you make, what you're going to do, maybe I'll cut mine a little smaller so it's easy to see. Okay, so here's my triangle. Everybody has this space at the bottom of their page, right? This empty space at the bottom here. Okay, so what you're going to do, make sure it's a triangle first, please, has 3 sides. So somewhere on the left area, so this is my left, this would be the right over here, right? Everybody with me? So somewhere on the left, arrange it however you like, and trace it. Trace it on the left side, yes. You know, if I trace it, are these 2 triangles the same then? Is this one the same as this one? If I traced it? Hopefully you're going to say yeah.
We're just doing one triangle?
You're just going to trace one triangle. Okay, so what you're going to do on the right sides is you're going to poke a hole through somewhere in the center of your triangle. Okay? And then somewhere on the right, you're going to poke a hole in the page. and you're going to put the brass fastener that I gave everybody through the center, through that hole, and then through the page. And then you're going to flatten it on the back side. Now, the reason I'm doing this is we can rotate it around. Even though my triangles don't look the same, they're congruent, right? Because I traced them.
We gotta poke a hole.
Yep. So what kind of transformation am I showing here? This is a rotation. Yeah. You still have congruent triangles, even though you do a rotation.
And also through our page.
Yes. So I flattened it out
Both pages.
on the back. If you want to flatten it out like behind that, if you glued or if you have, you can do that if you want. I want you to have the ability to spin it so you can see, even they don't look the same, the triangles are still congruent. Okay. Yeah. You want styluses? For like a compass?
I'm a little off. Shoot on top of it.
You're welcome. Anybody else need help?
Shoot on top of it. Top of what? Oh, damn it.
Okay, so let's add a few more
Messed up.
things here. Okay, who's got a good three-letter word?
He put his on top of it.
What?
Put mine on top of the drawing.
Okay then. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Who's got a good three-letter word? You said eat? E-A-T, eat. Okay, who's got another, gentlemen, who's got another three-letter word that doesn't have E, A, or T in it? Okay, so let's do dog. So I'm going to, now, please listen. On the one that I can move, I'm going to label it actually on the note card, otherwise it'll move on me. So I heard dog first, so we're going to do D, O, and G. Maybe I'll do a pen here so it's easier to see. So this is D, O, and G. Okay, so once you've got that labeled at the top here, we're going to have triangle EAT, since some people are hungry. Now, if I do EAT, what should the order of the other one be? Look at my picture. Maybe I should have made it the same. So what does E go with? In my picture, E goes with O. Okay, what does A go with in my picture? That's supposed to be a D there if you can't see it sideways. So it'd be O, D, G. But make sure you list the one that you have matched up. Does that make sense? So mine is triangle EAT is congruent to triangle ODG. If yours is not matched up the same way mine is, then make yours work for your problem. Does that make sense? Don't put ODG if yours is really DOG. Okay, so let's list out the parts again. So based on this situation, angle E would be congruent to angle O, right? Angle A would be congruent to angle D. And then finally, angle T would be congruent to angle G. I've got 3 pairs of angles and 3 pairs of sides. So now, for my pairs of sides, I would have segment EA congruent to segment OD. I would have segment AT congruent to segment DG. And then finally, I would have segment ET congruent to segment OG. So order matters. Okay, order tells you what gets matched up. You need to pay attention in your problems, bless you, to these congruent statements, because these statements tell you what gets matched up. We have a picture down here to help us, but the first one we did without the picture. Again, when you do some type of rigid motion, like a rotation is a rigid motion, your figures are still congruent. They might look like they're in a different orientation, but they're still the same. Yours should be the same because I asked you to trace your triangle. Unless you added it and didn't really trace it, they should be the same.